2025 was not a normal year in geopolitics. It was a year of near wars, sudden ceasefires, and red lines being tested across the globe. From nuclear brinkmanship in the Middle East, to drone warfare in South Asia, to NATO facing its closest moment to open conflict with Russia since World War II. This was a year where escalation felt one decision away. Here's how 2025 unfolded, and why it may define the decade ahead. In May, India and Pakistan experienced their most intense military confrontation in half a century. After extremists killed 26 civilians near Pahalgam in Indian-administered Kashmir, tensions exploded. What followed was 3 days of open military action, including drone strikes, projectile attacks, and the downing of fighter jets on both sides. Unlike past crises, this conflict unfolded at speed, with drones and precision weapons replacing slow troop mobilizations. The escalation raised fears that two nuclear-armed rivals were closer to war than at any point since the late 20th century. International pressure eventually pulled both sides back, but the precedent was clear. Future conflicts may move faster than diplomacy can keep up. June marked one of the most consequential moments in Middle Eastern geopolitics in decades. As Iran neared the threshold of producing nuclear weapons, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, targeting Iranian nuclear and ballistic missile facilities. Shortly after, the United States joined with Operation Midnight Hammer, conducting coordinated airstrikes that destroyed critical components of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. This was no proxy conflict. It was direct military action aimed at preventing a nuclear-armed Iran. While the strikes avoided full-scale war, they shattered long-standing assumptions and made one thing clear: nuclear red lines are no longer theoretical. Also in June, the U.S. quietly brokered one of the year's most overlooked breakthroughs. Washington mediated talks between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, two nations locked in decades of instability and proxy conflict. The result was the Washington Accords, formally signed in December. The agreement called for Rwandan troop withdrawal and laid the groundwork for ending one of Africa's longest-running regional conflicts. While fragile, the Accords showed that diplomacy still worked in 2025 when major powers chose to use it. In July, tensions erupted in Southeast Asia. Cambodia and Thailand clashed over the Prasat Thamuan Tom Temple in the Dangrek Mountains, their worst confrontation in decades. Artillery fire and troop movements raised alarms across the region until U.S. President Donald Trump intervened, threatening to halt trade negotiations with both countries. Within days, a ceasefire was enforced. It was a reminder that even ancient disputes can become modern flashpoints, and that economic leverage remains one of the fastest tools to stop escalation. September delivered one of the year's most dangerous moments. After Russian MiG-31 fighter jets violated Estonian airspace for over 10 minutes, and at least 20 drones entered Polish airspace, NATO launched Operation Eastern Sentry. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk described it as the closest we have been to open conflict since World War II. NATO forces mobilized rapidly, reinforcing Eastern Europe and sending a clear signal: airspace violations would no longer be treated as accidents. The standoff ended without shots fired, but the rules of engagement had shifted. In October, Trump brokered a ceasefire in Gaza after issuing a stark warning: all hell will break loose if fighting continued. The agreement introduced a three-phase peace framework, beginning with an immediate ceasefire and hostage exchanges. While fragile and incomplete, it paused one of the world's most entrenched conflicts, and showed how hard power rhetoric combined with diplomacy reshaped negotiations in 2025. The year ended with one of its most dramatic escalations. In December, the U.S. imposed a total and complete blockade on Venezuelan oil tankers, designating President Nicolas Maduro's government as a foreign extremist organization. Vessels were seized, airstrikes were conducted, and Venezuela was effectively cut off from global oil markets. The move sent shockwaves through Latin America and global energy markets, and signaled a return to direct economic warfare backed by military force. 2025 was not defined by one war but by how close so many conflicts came to becoming wars. Drones replaced troops, economic threats replaced negotiations, and red lines that once felt distant were tested repeatedly. As we enter 2026, the question isn't whether geopolitics will calm down but whether the world has learned how close it came.